r/ask Reddit. What's your I can't believe they got away with this in a kid's show moment? When Mr. Krabs goes with SpongeBob and Patrick on a panty raid, oh my god. The sheer fact that SpongeBob and Patrick like breaking into the homes of old ladies and stealing their underwear is something else. An episode of one of the incarnations of Scooby-Doo in the late 2000s. My niece loved watching them, so I would sit and watch with her. Basically, a guest character who is a cute blonde and is crushing on Fred turns coyly to him while stating, "I'm 18, able to legally vote." The SpongeBob episode where they learn a curse word, and even though it is bleeped you still have SpongeBob basically saying nice ducking day, Patrick. Fun fact, apparently all the voice actors were swearing for real, because it was easier to deliver their lines that way. There's an episode of Adventure Time where Finn watches Marceline get naked from her closet and he just keeps watching cause he's like 12. I remember that Fairly OddParents episode where Timmy wishes he had never been born, or something along those lines, and then he ends up realizing that everyone including his parents is way happier without him. Seemed pretty dark for a kids show to me. I know it's a parody of The Greatest Gift and It's a Wonderful Life, but to tell a child the world's better off without you, that's the road to suicidal ideation right there. And at one point, Timmy seems to resign himself to his fate. It's ducking awful. Courage the Cowardly Dog was nightmare fuel. I have no idea how they got that on primetime children's network. The other one that comes to mind is Animaniacs and their infamous fingerprints joke. Courage the Cowardly Dog was so brilliant. I loved that show when I was a kid. The King Razzies episode someone mentioned was one of my favorites. I also loved the Where-a-Mole one. Or that creepy one with the woman and the pipes. It was ace. When SpongeBob is trying to get Gary in the bath, and he shows Gary doubloon soaps and says, "Look Gary, doubloons. Don't drop him." Correct me if I'm wrong. The Amazing World of Gumball. Gumball had to blow Alan in the school's restroom. Gumball also just straight murders Alan in multiple episodes. I was watching Inside Out with my kids the other day, and cracked up when they moved to San Francisco and were talking about hairy bears. Maybe off topic, but in Iceland a few years ago the national TV showed the Teletubbies with the grown-up movie subtitles. That moment when Tinky Winky says "I know you were high" and ducked him behind my back. Kids these days. There's an episode of Tom and Jerry called Blue Cat Blues. There Tom basically ducks up his life going after a girl, and at the end it's heavily implied that he and Jerry kill themselves. I used to love that show as a kid, and when I was watching it with my nephew recently I realized how much of a bully Jerry was. Half the time Tom doesn't even want to deal with Jerry, he just is trying to live his life. I now root for Tom a lot more than I did as a kid. I still like the show but it's brutal. Patrick, your genius is showing. Where proceeds to look worryingly at his genitals and quickly covers them. All of 90s Ren and Stimpy, especially the rubber nipples salesman, not counting the adult revival from 2002 BTW. There was a scene where they were babysitting a huge guy named Kowalski, who had been in prison, and Ren was going to spank him. So he told him to pull down his pants, but when Ren saw the state of his butthole, he recoiled in fear and told him to pull them back up. Not a show. But in Aladdin and the King of Thieves, when the 40 thieves are attacking Aladdin and Jasmine's wedding and Genie remarks, "I thought the earth wasn't supposed to move until the honeymoon." Also in the OG movie, Jafar basically dressed Jasmine up in a skimpier outfit and planned to marry her against her will. Then when she fought back he decides to suffocate his fiancée in a giant hourglass. The episode of Regular Show where Mordecai sees Pops naked, and then at the end it shows Benson with a boner. Or the episode with a scene where a horse takes 2 candies out of Benson. Yes, he took them from his crotch. Can't find the video. In the Incredibles movie, the children flat out are responsible for multiple henchman deaths. Mr. Incredible hides under the corpse of his friend, and the central conflict comes from him stopping a suicide. Gargoyles in 1994, in the episode Deadly Force, Broadway, One of the gargoyles who likes cowboy movies accidentally shoots Eliza the cop with her own gun in her apartment. Blood is shown on the floor and a seriously well done episode commences about the dangers of guns and how Eliza should have been more careful where she left it. And Broadway understands guns are not toys. It was banned for a while, but is now on Disney+. Invaders him, like, the entire show. Sandy Cheeks lives in Bikini Bottom. Speaking of Bikini Bottom, that setting is probably my favorite kids TV show lore. Bikini Bottom is directly below Bikini Atoll. You know, the island chain that the United States nuked the living ducking shit out of in the 50s. Everyone in SpongeBob is crazy because they're the byproducts of nuclear fallout. There was a Canadian-based sketch show called You Can't Do That on television that was on Nickelodeon that was crazy in a million ways. But the most crazy to me was the recurring firing squad sketches where a crazy South American dictator was trying to put children to death. In most cases he would mess up and accidentally get killed himself. Side note, it was the show that created Nickelodeon's famous slime gag. Total Drama Island is full of adult jokes. You Can't Do That on television was such a great show but had some weird tea-curing skits, including a Nazi named Nazi that kept children chained in a dungeon. So much of the amazing world of Gumball, the prison episode comes to mind. Remember the episode of SpongeBob where SpongeBob and Patrick were cursing and they censored it with dolphin noises? Totally went over my head when I was younger. Then there's the panty raid. The one episode when they were naked and had the invisible spray. Then I remember the one time when Sandy was like, SpongeBob doesn't have hair, or does he? And that one scene where SpongeBob's nose is sticking out of the dirt and Mr. Krabs says something like, please tell me that's your nose, lol. A whole bunch of adult jokes that I didn't get, but when I watch it now with my niece I feel like I am watching an adult show sometimes, lol. Invaders him when he was organ harvesting, also brain transplanting, using a time travel machine to destroy someone's life with pigs, murdered everyone for the sake of teamwork, ripped out a kid's eyes and replaced them with ones that would replace squirrels with him so he would stop following him as a gift. In an early episode of Pokemon, Ash battles some samurai guy who says his pincer will break Ash's Metapod in half. We get a picture in Ash's imagination of exactly that happening. Even if it didn't actually happen, the image of a Pokemon getting broken in half was pretty dark. Rocco's Modern Life. Rocco's job was a phone sex operator. One episode his neighbor called. How the hell did they get that approved? The show total derask me anything. There are so many scenes that I can't believe I looked over as a kid. Like one character, Owen thought he was going to die, so he went on a rant about he has never fulfilled one of his own getting giggy fantasies, and not to mention the time when a character named Heather got her shirt ripped off. They blurred her lady bits as the show calls them. Whoa, you made it to the end? You're a ducking beast. I'll cut you a deal. Smash like and subscribe for more curated content, bruh. It's free and that's a great price.